Hey friends! So in this video, I am going to talk to you about 5 tips that you can use when you are in a situation where you need to grieve the relationship that you had with a friend. So in this situation, which I feel like people don't talk enough about this situation, but in this situation, you have had a meaningful relationship with another person. In this video, I'm going to talk about friendship. In another video, I will talk about romantic partners. But you've had a meaningful relationship with a friend. That friend is still alive, healthy, kicking. You see them on Instagram or Facebook, they're posting, they're fine, but your relationship with them is not. So I will get a little bit into how these tips could differ based on what happened to make the relationship no longer be fine. But you can basically just kind of think of this as like some general things that you can do to help yourself when you are grieving this kind of relationship. So I wanted to talk about this because I have been through this several times throughout my life, and I never really knew exactly how to handle it because I feel like we get a lot of information basically about how to handle like romantic breakups. But in all honesty, a lot of the things that you might do to handle a romantic breakup in a healthy way, some of those things can also apply when you are basically breaking up with a friend. So, but I use the word grieve because I don't think we talk a lot about breaking up with a friend. And so, in my experience, breaking up with a friend has been even worse. It has been um, even more stressful, even more like emotionally draining and saddening when I have to, break up with a friend, or when a relationship with a friend, like a platonic friend, like a girlfriend, for example, when that relationship has ended. Because also in a platonic relationship, like in a romantic relationship, one big cause of like a breakup is like infidelity, right? But you can't like really cheat on a friend. So you're like, well, what do you do, right? So, anyway, that's why I wanted to talk about this and share some things that I have learned over the several times that this has happened to me. And for some context, this has happened to me like in different stages of my life. So, when I was younger, like in high school, after high school, in college, and then, like throughout my 20s and 30s. And then, amazingly or unfortunately, this situation happened to me like earlier this summer. So I think it's just a part of life that you will have different, like your relationship with other people will just naturally transition. Sometimes it might mean that like your friend gets married or has a kid or moves away. Like that's kind of a more benign transition. But sometimes it may mean that the person like broke your trust, or they don't respect your boundaries, or they behaved in some really toxic way towards you, which is those 3 things that I just described. That's what happened to me recently over this earlier this summer. So, yeah, so let's talk about it. So, quickly, what is grief? So, when I say the word grief, I don't want you to think about like somebody died. I think a lot of times we use that word to mean like, somebody has passed on. But in this case, it can almost feel like the person really has died, because if the situation was extreme enough or egregious enough to make you feel like, like you'll never see them again, you'll never talk to them again, it can feel like like they did die, and it can feel weird because they're not actually dead, and like, what is this? What is this? What are these murky waters that we're in? Um, so with grief, I am describing that really like ongoing, deep, deep sadness that is honestly, I don't mean to sound negative, but honestly can feel incurable. And it is incurable. Like if you're experiencing real grief over something that has really just ended, then if it's over, then it's over. The grief is incurable. You can feel better over time, but that feeling that you feel about what has ended and the attachment that you had to it or the person you had to it, like that's real. That's not something that you can just like brush off, right? So that's what I mean when I say grief. You probably are not going to grieve like when your manager quits and like you don't get to see them anymore, right? But when you have a really deep connection with another person and for whatever reason that connection has permanently ended, that's what I feel, that's what I'm thinking of when I say grief. So also, like I said before, I have notes down here as usual. So like I said before, the idea of grieving a friendship or relationship with a person that's still alive, like these tips can also help you in your romantic relationships. So just keep that in mind. There's something for everybody in this video. And the last thing I wanted to say before I get into the tips is I can't tell you what to do, but I will tell you, if you are feeling really, really deeply saddened by ending a relationship with a friend, or things are not working out with a friend and you've cut them off or whatever, if you're feeling that really deep sadness, like the kind of sadness where you are like crying about it, you've had to talk to other people about it, you're journaling about it or whatever, like a level of sadness that you have to process, right? Because you can be disappointed, you can feel sad or whatever, but you don't always have to like really get down and process things as much as some other things. So if you're in that level of sadness, I want you to try to remember that that level of sadness means that you've lost something important to you. And that's, like that's it. And and that's okay. Even if your friend turned out to be like a jerk or they, did something terrible to you, on your end, which is all that you can really talk about or control anyway, on your end, the relationship really meant a lot to you. That person meant a lot to you. Maybe they still mean a lot to you, even if you're not in a relationship with them anymore. And the extreme feelings of grief or sadness, that's just a symptom of that. It doesn't mean that you are stupid. So, for example, if the person did something to you that was like a betrayal, you feeling sad about your relationship being over with that person does not mean like you should have seen it coming. It doesn't mean that you're dumb. It doesn't, it doesn't mean any of those things. It only means that you have lost something that was really important to you, that you really cared about, a connection with another person, right? So always try to remember that. I share this because almost every time that this has happened to me, I thought, oh my God, I am so dumb. Like, why was I ever friends with that person in the first place? Like my mind just kind of went into this place of like only blaming myself for having been in the relationship at all. And that's not a healthy way to look at our relationships with other people. So with that being said, tip number 1 is, again, how we're talking about how to grieve a friend who's still alive. So tip number 1, don't be mean to them and don't be mean to yourself. Take some time, do some journaling, and just focus on each single day. So what do I mean by that? So if you have basically a falling out, like a big disagreement that is in Like you can't get past it for whatever reason. And you're angry, do not be mean to the other person for a couple of reasons. One, what good is it going to do you? Right? Other than like exercising some toxic part of your ego, you're not going to gain anything out of being rude to them, being mean to them, sending them mean text messages and emails and all that kind of stuff. If you have the desire to do that, do not do it. Don't do it. Stop yourself. And take some time to think about like why that is your reaction. If you have done some healing work, you may be able to figure out for yourself the real honest reason, which will likely be related to your ego, your own hurt, your own trauma. If you haven't done that much work, you think about it and you're just like, oh, I want to send these angry messages because they deserve it, they're horrible or whatever. That's not the answer. Talk to somebody who is removed from the situation, someone who can be more logical, like a good friend who is a logical friend or a therapist or somebody like that. But do not be mean to the other person, whatever that means to you, and don't be mean to yourself. So don't be mean to yourself is kind of like what I described before. Um, don't think like you were such a moron or terrible person to have been in a relationship with this person in the first place. There was a reason why you were in the relationship with them. At some points, they probably were a good friend to you. At some points, the relationship was probably good. And if you are like a spiritual person, if you put it in like a more expanded lens, the reason could also be to help you, like the universe, God, whoever you believe in, whatever you believe in. The other reason could have been like this is something you needed to learn. This is a situation that you needed to go through in order to learn about yourself, your interactions with other people, how you connect to other people, or whatever wording makes sense to you, right? So, any way you think about it, even any way that no matter what happened, the relationship is an opportunity for you to learn always, okay? And so within that, just leave kind space around whatever has happened. Don't be mean to them and get yourself some more nasty karma on the way. Please don't do that. And don't be mean to yourself because it was a learning experience for both of you. Okay, tip number 2. Don't try to guess how things will be in the future between you two. This is a really important one because we're talking about grieving relationships with people who are still alive. So since these people are still alive, you could possibly in the future have another relationship with them. And that could be good, that could be bad. Like that's not what we can't really, you shouldn't really speculate on that right now because right now you're trying to heal and move forward like on your own. You're doing your own work if you're watching this video, hopefully, right? So I think that, and I've done this, so this is not a judgment. This is just me talking to you like a friend. So I think that it can be really hard to move on from a relationship and either give it time to where maybe you grow back together, or give yourself time to where you grow in an opposite direction. It's hard to do either of those things if you are constantly like ruminating about okay, oh, if I do this, or if I send this text message, or if I call and say this, then it'll be like this in the future. Or, just constantly thinking about like, even if it's negative, like, oh, in 2 weeks, I'm going to get back at them or whatever. So I know it can be very difficult to just, I can't tell you, control your thoughts because that's not really how thoughts work most of the time. But I want you to practice being aware of your thoughts and what are you thinking about this person as far as like in the future? If the situation is bad enough, you may really need to both decide and stick to the relationship being over, totally over. You're not going to be in communication with them in the future. You're not going to talk to them. It's done, right? If there is some situation where in the future you guys could be friends again or whatever, that could be nice. But you need to go into that new situation in the future as a person who has done their own work and a person who's done their own healing from what happened in the past. Because one thing that I have done that don't want to happen to you, you don't want to get into a cycle of like not being friends with a person, or like having a lull, and then like, or they've hurt your feelings and then you don't talk to them and then you go back and they hurt your feelings. Like, you don't want to get yourself into that cycle to where you are continuing to expose yourself to like being in a relationship that is not for your highest good, that's not good for you. The way that you can do that is to take some time to just focus on yourself. So when I say, how did I say it? Don't try to guess how things will be in the future between you. When I say to like, don't try to guess, what I mean is trying to control your thoughts and your feelings and like basically the level of mental interaction that you're having with that person, because you're not having physical interactions with them. So try to limit that as best you can, in order to give yourself some time to like grow out of it and get yourself some space, get yourself some healing going on. And then no matter what happens in the future, if you take some time to heal now, you'll be better off with that friend again or your future friends. Either way, you win. Tip number 3. This is related to number 2. Stay out of contact at least for a while, depending on the circumstances. So I won't go a lot into this because I feel like I just explained this honestly, but staying out of contact with that person will allow you to have some time to yourself, allow you to heal, allow you to examine your own feelings outside of the relationship. Because when we're in a relationship with another person, we basically have our feelings and then we have like the feelings that are intertwined within the relationship. And sometimes those conflict. I've been in a lot of situations where like, if it was just me, I would feel this way, but I'm not just me. So in the relationship, we have like this kind of like commingling of feelings, right? So stay, like, don't contact them. Don't be mean to them. Don't send them rude text messages and emails, all this BS. Don't do that. But staying out of contact will give you time. Will give yourself a lot of time. That might mean months, right? That might mean years. That might mean for the rest of your life. But stay out of contact so you can get your own self together, get your own thoughts and feelings together. And hey, like I said, depending on the circumstances, you might not ever talk to this person again, ever again. And that's okay. Just sit down. I know that might sound really harsh. That might sound really saddening. But if it is for your safety, number one, but if it's for like the betterment of your mental health, 10 out of 10, I recommend. Don't leave that stuff alone. Leave that stuff in the past. Leave those people in the past where they belong. Okay, tip number 4. Tip number 4. Allow yourself to feel really, really sad for as long as it takes. I know you don't want to do this. I've never wanted to do this. I am the kind of person who will distract herself with work. So if there are some like emotional things that I need to deal with, a lot of times, as I've gotten older and going to therapy and stuff, now today, me sitting right here talking to you today, I'm better at letting myself be sad. But that is a very recent development. For most of my life, when I was sad, I would like work or take up a new hobby, or I would do something that was like busy, productive. I've never been like a person who could just go and like lay on the couch for 3 days and cry. I almost wish I could be that person sometimes, but either way, you pick your poison. If you like whatever distraction you use, whether it's the couch and Netflix, or if it's let's go build a new website and start a new business, whatever. You need to stop doing that. That's the kind of the point of what I'm trying to say. You need to allow yourself to be really sad for as long as it takes. Really sad. What does that look like? Maybe you cry. Maybe you talk to a friend. You do some journaling. Maybe you go for a little walk in nature. But I'm going to call those healthy ways of experiencing your sadness. If you have like really extreme sadness where you're thinking of self-harm, then you definitely need to contact a professional person, contact people in your family, get some people around you to help, hold up your mental health, because you need help, like real help in that situation. But if you're having a normal level of deep sadness, allow yourself to feel it, allow yourself to cry. Some of the times when I've been grieving, I will feel okay throughout the day, and then something will happen and remind me of that person or remind me of the situation, and then I just want to cry. I just want to be sad. And between you and me, one of the things that I like to do when I'm kind of bummed out is to go for a drive. I don't know if you live in a place where you can like go for a drive. If you don't have a car, go for a walk. But like go for a drive, get out of your like where you live, and like let the world kind of go by a little bit. It's like a very gentle distraction, because you got to pay attention a little bit to the driving, but you also, if you go alone, you also can like kind of be alone with your thoughts, but you also have like the balance of being outside. Like going for a drive is underrated in my opinion. But go for a drive. Do whatever you need to do. Give yourself as much time as you need to take. This might be years. Okay? That's all right. If you're sad for years, what did I say at the beginning of the video? That means that level of sadness is just a reflection. It's just a symptom of how much the relationship meant to you, how deep of a connection you had. And what else is there to being alive other than our connections with other people? If you've had a connection with another person that was so impactful and so strong and so like intertwined with your psyche, your mental, your thoughts, and like all this stuff, if you've had that kind of connection, that's beautiful. Whether you've lost it or not, if you've had that kind of connection, that is beautiful. I want you to try to remember that. Tip number 5, be honest with yourself regarding what happened, how you contributed, and what you've learned for your next relationship. So I touched on this a little bit towards the beginning, but in order to move on, again, like move on forward and never see that person again, or in the future, maybe if you can be friends again, I don't know. But in order to move forward, whatever way, you have to be honest. If you go out and start like bashing that person on social media, if you immediately go out and you're like, I'm going to find a new best friend, like if you immediately are trying to like involve other people in your healing and bash that person or whatever, you are not being honest, right? You're not being honest, and you need to take some time with yourself to think about, like, okay, what just happened? Was this something that is kind of like one upping other things I've been through with this person? In my experience, that's exactly what it was. I had been through other negative situations with this person, and I did not speak on it enough. I try to be too much of a people pleaser and try to like keep things calm, keep things cool. And eventually the next situation just blew up, everything blew up, and like, oh, okay. This is not the situation for me. So, like I am able to articulate, at least at a high level, in this video, what happened in my relationship. You want to get to that point. You want to get to the point where you can be like, okay, these are the things that I did in this relationship that contributed to what happened. Even if your contribution was like basically trying too hard, I guess, to people please, because people pleasing is a symptom of something that's going on wrong with you. You should not be out here doing stuff that is like detrimental to you or neglecting your needs in order to remain in a relationship with another person. Okay, so I'm telling you this even though I'm doing it and I've experienced it. Okay, I'm telling you this because I have some self-awareness about the BS that I be pulling sometimes. What is the BS that you be pulling sometimes? You got to be honest. You got to be honest with yourself about whatever happened and how you contributed and what did you learn. So in my case, what have I learned? I have learned that there there's no, you cannot self-neglect to the, like, no level of self-neglect will make your relationship with another person better, because you've neglected you. And no matter what happens with all these other meat bags out in the world, who do you always have around? You. You cannot self-neglect your way into a good relationship. That's the short version of what I have learned in this situation, and honestly, in a couple other ones, right? So I've learned to prioritize more of like how I'm feeling and make sure to communicate that, make sure to be honest about that. And I'm also learning some positive ways to communicate in that way, right? So, yeah. But you gotta be honest. You cannot articulate, communicate better, whoop de whoop, until you are honest with yourself about the whole situation, as best as you can be, but about the whole situation. And I feel like being honest with yourself will help you grieve, because a lot of times, like, after you've been through some rough situation with somebody, like if you're like me, you want to know why. A lot of times you don't get the answer. You don't, especially, you may not get the answer from the other person of like, why. But you can definitely, with some self-reflection, you can definitely get the answer of the why. You can get it from yourself. You can figure out what you did, and that might give you a lot of peace to be able to do that. Okay, so I hope that these tips were helpful. If you've been in a similar situation and you want to share some of your experiences or what you think, what you went through with the whoop, if you want to share that with the rest of us, I would love that. Thank you so much in advance. So please subscribe to the channel, share with a friend that you're still talking to. And yeah, make sure to like the video. That helps to tell the YouTube algorithm that other people needs to see this video, and you already know other people need to see this video. All right, I love you so much. I hope this helped you, and I'll see you in the next one. Namaste.